I watched them all the time. I think I watched Indiana State and Iowa, Caitlin Clark play about the same last year, so I was watching a lot of basketball.
It's reprehensible what they're allowing some of these players. Anybody that does something flagrant to this young lady for what she's brought to the game should be suspended and fined big time for doing that.
What happens when the most respected legend in basketball history decides he's had enough of watching a generational talent get disrespected by jealous veterans? Larry Bird just delivered the most explosive commentary about Brittney Griner's disgraceful treatment of Caitlin Clark, and what he said will leave you absolutely speechless. But before we get to Bird's absolutely devastating takedown, you need to understand just how badly Griner messed up and how the sports world has been reacting. Because what Stephen A. Smith and Patrick Bet-David said about this situation set the stage for Bird's nuclear response that's now breaking the internet. The controversy started when Brittney Griner used a slur against Caitlin Clark after fouling out of their game.
Or the ticky-tack fouls that we were talking about earlier today.
As you just saw, that moment was caught on camera and it went viral immediately, sparking outrage across the basketball community. But it was Stephen A. Smith's reaction that first sent shockwaves through the sports world. Smith didn't just criticize Griner, he absolutely destroyed her with one of the most brutal takedowns in sports media history.
First things first. Respectfully. Brittney Griner was in a Russian prison.
Then Smith goes on to deliver what many are calling the most devastating line of his entire career.
When you, clearly she's not remembering who they let out to get her back.
The merchant of death.
The merchant of death. An arms dealer that wanted to kill American citizens, according to the reports. That's who they let out. For her.
The ESPN personality didn't stop there. He continued by saying that one would think someone who experienced real oppression and real restrictions on their freedom would have some perspective about what really matters. He added that instead of showing gratitude and being a mentor to young players, Griner was out there making racial slurs because she couldn't handle someone else getting attention. But Smith wasn't the only media figure to absolutely demolish Griner's credibility.
You look at it, they don't know the value that she's bringing for all of them. She bringing, they flying private planes now. They went flying private before she came. They on major networks now. They weren't doing that. See, she remind me of Tiger Woods for golf.
Yes.
Moving from here, we go to Patrick Bet-David, the entrepreneur and Valuetainment founder. Known for his unfiltered commentary, Bet-David broke down how Griner's behavior was not just wrong, but really stupid.
While this is taking place, Brittney Griner comes out and says, I am so sick and tired of the NBA, WNBA. It used to be a peaceful, small little thing. Now there's crowds screaming, hollering. This is disruptive. It's not allowing us to play the game. This is her quote.
He goes on to explain that instead of being jealous, there should be gratitude, and instead of slurs, there should be mentorship. The entrepreneur then delivered a line that's been shared millions of times, explaining that this wasn't just about tough basketball, but about jealousy and not recognizing a great talent who was making the game bigger. Both Smith and Bet-David's commentaries went absolutely viral, with fans praising them for finally saying what everyone was thinking. But their brutal takedowns were just the beginning. Because when Larry Bird, the man who rarely speaks about current controversies, decided to weigh in, Griner felt the heat. Bird said he watched the footage of what Griner said, and it left him stunned. He called it unacceptable. He said, when you stoop to racial insults, especially when you're in a leadership position, you lose all credibility, not just as a teammate, but as a person. Also, when Bird was asked recently about how Caitlin Clark's been treated by certain veteran players in the WNBA, especially Brittney Griner, his response wasn't just honest. It was absolutely brutal, and nobody saw it coming. In an interview that's now gone viral, Bird said he's been watching Caitlin for a while.
And they moved the basketball. He was well coached. I watched them all the time. I think I watched Indiana State and Iowa, Caitlin Clark play about the same last year, so I was watching a lot of basketball.
Bird talked about how back when he entered the NBA, he was this young, confident kid from Indiana, and a lot of eyes were on him. The veterans had every reason to be skeptical, but instead of tearing him down or getting bitter, they respected him. They played him hard, they challenged him, but they also understood the value of talent, and they knew what it meant to help grow the game. Bird made it clear that kind of welcome, that kind of respect, is missing today, at least when it comes to Caitlin Clark. He said what he's seeing now from some of these WNBA veterans, especially Brittney Griner, is completely backwards. Instead of helping greatness rise, they're trying to pull it down. Instead of building up the game, they're sabotaging it with petty drama. And in Bird's eyes, it's not just disappointing, it's embarrassing. Then Bird took it even further. According to Bird, Caitlin is doing more for women's basketball right now than any player in the last 25 years. She's bringing more viewers, more money, more conversation, and more respect to the sport than it's had in a long time. And instead of rallying around that, instead of celebrating it, Bird said Griner is acting like someone who can't handle the spotlight being on somebody else. But here's the thing, the timing of Bird's comments couldn't have been more intense. This came right after Stephen A. Smith and Patrick Bet-David both went in on Griner as well. So you had three major voices, all from different worlds, suddenly lining up and calling out the same thing. Bird made it clear that he didn't care about excuses. He wasn't buying into the idea that this was just veteran hazing or part of the game. He called it what it was, personal, unprofessional, and way over the line. He said there's no justification for going after someone's character, and he flat out said there is never a place for racial comments, especially from a supposed leader in the league. At this point, Bird didn't just express disappointment. He sounded genuinely disgusted. And the thing that made it hit so hard? He didn't just drop opinions, he told a story. He brought up how, back in his early years, players like Magic Johnson, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and Julius Erving could have easily been jealous of him. Here comes this white guy, all the way from Indiana, getting big endorsements and a ton of attention. But those legends didn't treat him with jealousy. They treated him with respect. They competed. They welcomed him. They showed him what professionalism looked like. Bird said that's how it's supposed to be done. What we're seeing now, according to Bird, is the total opposite of that, and it's damaging not just to the younger players, but to the league as a whole. And the fans? They're not just listening, they're rallying behind him. Social media exploded the moment that interview hit. People have been posting nonstop. Stuff like, finally someone's saying what we've all been thinking. And Bird, Stephen A., and Bet-David didn't miss a single shot with this one. Hashtags like hashtag Bird defends Clark, hashtag Stephen A. Wright, and hashtag Bet-David Truth have been trending everywhere. And it's not just because of what was said, it's who said it. These aren't fringe voices. This is Larry Bird, an all-time great, Stephen A. Smith, one of the most recognized faces in sports media, and Patrick Bet-David, a powerhouse voice in the business and entrepreneurial world. Three completely different people, all coming to the same conclusion. That's not a coincidence, that's a statement. Bird also highlighted something that a lot of people have been trying to say. Caitlin's impact is way bigger than just the game. He said this young woman is changing how people see women's basketball. And instead of seeing that for the blessing it is, you've got veterans turning it into controversy. Bird said it's not just short-sighted, it's a terrible look for the league. Then, he made another strong point. He brought up how, when Michael Jordan came into the NBA, he had to deal with the bad boy Pistons and all that physical play. Those guys made him earn every single bucket, but Bird said even they never stooped to personal attacks. They didn't go after his family. They didn't use slurs. They kept it on the court. But what Griner did? That wasn't on the court. That was personal. And that crossed every line. Furthermore, Bird said something else that really stuck. He said Stephen A. and Bet-David were absolutely right. He said Griner's behavior wasn't just a bad look, it was dangerous. Dangerous for the league, dangerous for the culture of the sport, and disrespectful to the country that fought to bring her home. He reminded everyone that women's basketball has been grinding for decades, trying to earn its place. And now, when someone finally shows up who can actually move the needle and take it mainstream, some veterans would rather tear that down than be part of the moment. He called it what it is. Self-sabotage, and flat-out stupidity. And you can feel the impact of his words. When Larry Bird speaks, people listen. But when his words are backed by Stephen A. and Bet-David, that's a storm of truth that's hard to ignore. Together, those three voices have sent a message, and it's loud and clear. There's no room in professional sports for personal attacks, bitterness, or racial slurs. Not now, not ever. As all of this plays out, the world's watching to see how Griner will respond. But based on what we've seen before, most fans aren't expecting an apology. They're not expecting a change in attitude. If anything, they're bracing for more of the same behavior that's already damaged her image. Meanwhile, Caitlin Clark keeps showing up, doing her job, and staying composed. She's letting her game speak for itself. She's showing the kind of class, grace, and focus that legends like Bird can't help but respect. And now, because of this powerful moment, because of Bird, Smith, and Bet-David speaking out, that contrast between Clark and her critics is clearer than ever. Everyone can see it now. Now, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one of them. And if you want to see more analysis like this that cuts through the noise and tells you what's really happening in basketball, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. The basketball world is watching how this story develops, and Larry Bird's explosive words might just be the catalyst that finally changes how Caitlin Clark gets treated in the WNBA. Don't miss what happens next. This story is far from over. Thanks for watching.